What's up, guys, and welcome to part 2 of Scourge of War Waterloo, episode 32, The Eagle Triumphs. So, in our last video, we covered our initial assault on Saint Amand with Lafol's division of Van Dam's corps. We took it pretty easily at the point of the Bayonet. After capturing Saint Amand, we set up our line of containment and slowly started bringing more of our divisions in as we moved northwards from Saint Amand. And so we're just on the other side of Saint Amand now, near Saint Amand La Haie. That objective has been activated, and we have brought forth Bulldozing's division. As we were moving forward, we were kind of intercepted here by Scourge's division moving south from the Namur Road. And when we left off, we had just moved forward with Lagarde's brigade, and we were going to give part of Scourge's division here the Bayonet. And so we ended at a cliffhanger here, and now we're going to start the video and see what happens here with this Bayonet charge. All right, so let's get this going here. All right, so you can see Lagarde's brigade charging the enemy, who are in line firing at us. We've already lost 40 men, but that's not going to stop us from giving them the bayonet. So we have 2 battalions moving in on this unit here, a whole battalion moving in on this one, and a whole battalion moving in on this unit. So the Prussians, as predicted, are quickly giving way as our assault columns collide into them. And we have this unit here moving to help this unit up, but they have retreated already, so this unit will stop charging. So temporarily, at least, we have pushed back this initial Prussian force here, and we're going to set up Lagarde's brigade kind of in line to screen against this division while we attempt to get our other brigade here under Dufour up near the Saint Amand La Haie objective and see if we can push these 2 little units out of the way. You can see the Prussians do have some reinforcements moving in over here as well as over here. So we're going to attempt to screen, because we only have a brigade here. I don't know if it's enough to take on an entire Prussian division. We pushed back 3 battalions, but we had 4 battalions to work with. So we still have some troops back here. We have, I believe this is Girard's division back here. Yes, so we have Girard's division, plus we have some cavalry further north. So what we're going to do is bring Girard's division up in here and see if we can move through here, and while we're screening this Prussian division with this brigade over here, see if we can move Girard's division and set up some guns and kind of hit these guys in the flank. And then we still have our cavalry over here. And while that's going on, let's take a quick peek at what's going on around Saint Amand and Saint Amand La Hameau. And we have a pretty good line of containment set up here. We have a battery here, here, and then one across the bridge here. So kind of all along the front here we have artillery at close range. Also have a battery here. So we have cannon pretty much fronting the entire part of the river here. It's going to be very tough for the Prussians to get across this river, because it's going to slow them down. And it's going to be very tough for them to just stand on the opposite bank and try and bang it out with us, because we have cannon pretty much in their face everywhere. Which is what I meant when I talked about setting up a good line of containment. Being able to easily hold back the Prussian forces without having to pay too much attention to what's going on ourselves. So you can see some cavalry trying to move around this house here, and they're in for a surprise when they come around the bend here, because there's going to be 2 infantry squares waiting for them. And they quickly decide that maybe that's not the move. So yeah, they're turning around. They don't want any part of these infantry squares. And we're going to quickly rush a square over to shore up the defense around the artillery batteries in case that cavalry decides to get a little more aggressive than they have been so far. So now we have to turn our attention to dealing with this Prussian division here, Tipple Scourge's division. They have infantry, they have cavalry, they have artillery. So they have a pretty well-rounded force, but I still think we have more forces available than they do. It's just going to take us a little while to bring them to bear, so at first we don't want to agitate them too much because Gerard's division is still moving up and our cavalry is still sitting out there. Now, Gerard's division is pretty much the last of our full infantry divisions for Gerard's corps. So we're going to have to start getting our cavalry involved, and we're also going to have to bring up some troops from our reserve. And basically what that means is we're going to have to commit the Young Guard. So we're going to bring the Young Guard up here later on to extend our line even further northwards to capture Wagnelée, because most of Gerard's corps at this point will have been committed to holding up the line from Saint Amand to Saint Amand-la-Haie and almost to Wagnelée, because there's kind of a bend in the river and we have to use a good amount of troops to cover that too. So we're going to bring the Young Guard up later on to, and as well as the Guard Cavalry to secure Wagnelée. But right now I'm just moving Gerard's division as well as his artillery and the cavalry into position. And we're just kind of in a standoff with these Prussians around Saint Amand-la-Haie at the moment. And we're going to start kicking off some skirmishers here to start screening this line so that they get the better of it with the infantry. We got a whole brigade firing here, only like one battalion, so we're probably getting the better of it as it is, but it's always good to kick out skirmishers and get them in front. The Prussians do have a good deal of troops back here. Now, if I were the Prussians, I'd be using this time to bring my cannon up. But their cannon are already deployed, and they're just going to leave them there, as the AI typically does. Back behind the lines where they're doing no good whatsoever. So here's things back at Saint Amand, very in control. And I am probably looking for either the Guard Cavalry or the Young Guard here. Alright, so here's Gaio's cavalry. It looks like I'm moving them up to cover the kind of southern end of the Ligny River. As I mentioned, some Prussian forces do end up kind of moving to the south there, and I just want to, you can see them moving out right now, and I just want to kind of stuff up their position and give them pause, and cavalry is perfect for doing that because as the infantry approaches, they have to stop and form square, and that right away just slows them down. So we have some cavalry out here, some Prussian cavalry, but luckily they're just sitting there. And I'm just bringing a line unit to get them in support of this gun battery. Need to get some skirmishers facing this line unit that's moved through the fort area and put a peppering on them before they have a chance to really pepper the squares. Here comes our infantry division under Gerard, as well as our cavalry. And you'll notice I'm taking my time here. I'm not making an unplanned rush for the Saint Amand La Haie objective, because once I get it, I want to be in a position to set up my line of containment, and I want to have already put some of these Prussian units back. Remember, these objectives are waypoint objectives. You don't get any more points for capturing them earlier than you do later, because they're just worth a one-time value when you capture them. So we're blowing canister into this line right here now, and that's good, because that basically means they're not going to stand there for long, because we got our skirmishers shooting at them, we got the square shooting them, and yeah, we're just blasting them to pieces. And now they want to fire at this square, so we're hitting them in the flank, and they're just going to turn and run. You know, so that's really how you can get away with keeping squares in square formation against line infantry when you have artillery close, because even if they're approached by line infantry, and even though line infantry will get the better of a square, it's not going to matter when there's an artillery battery blasting canister into them. It just doesn't equal out. They're still going to take way more losses from the artillery than they can inflict on the square. So, you know, as long as you protect your squares with artillery, and as long as you have the squares there to protect the artillery from cavalry, it kind of all works out. You know, like I said, it's just a big game of rock, paper, scissors, and you always want to either be able to cover rock with paper, or to cut paper with scissors, you know, or to stop scissors with rock, or whatever combination is needed. As long as you have all of those arms available to you, you should be able to come out on top, especially against the AI, who really doesn't have a great grasp of how to use combined arms the way, you know, a human player would. So we force this line back, and if we can get this fort vacated, it'll start to be safe to move our brigade up into the Saint Amand La Haie area. The first thing we want to do, though, is to get some of these units out of here so we can begin moving against these units. Because all we have is a brigade here, and we will, like I've always said, I want to concentrate larger forces against smaller forces. I don't want to try and take one brigade and go on against this whole division here. And we can see the forces at Wagnelée here. We're going to have to deal with them. And as I said, we will bring the guard cavalry and some of the young guard up, and begin to get a hold on this position. But right now we have to get right here, Saint Amand La Haie. But I'm always thinking ahead, even though we haven't taken Saint Amand La Haie yet. I'm already thinking about how we're going to take Wagnelée. All right, here's Milhaud's reserve cavalry. And here is Delort's 14th Cavalry Division. And I think we're going to go with them as they're the furthest left. And I'm just going to start bringing them up around the rear of our line. And I, of course, did not take him off take charge, so only he's moving, because all of the units are on take charge. So now, if I take them all off take charge, they will all start moving. So he has nearly 2,000 men. That's a good cavalry force to start bringing up to Wagnelée. And you see we're setting up our cavalry just as a screening force. Bring our artillery forward, because they're not doing any good back there. And basically they're just going to be here to kind of answer the forces at Wagnelée, and just keep them from moving in while we try to secure Saint Amand La Haie. So Gerard's corps is pretty much up, and their guns have set up and are beginning to fire. And as soon as our brigade commanders get into position, we will start thinking about how we're going to move through here. And I'm already thinking about it. So we have Piat's brigade, and we're going to move them forward in column by division. And like I said, their flank is kind of wide open, and that's kind of what we're going to try and hit here. And I can see a lot of Prussians kind of moving forward in this area over here. But I'm pretty confident in this line being able to stop them because there's artillery here, there's skirmishers all along the front. And as soon as you can see the line of bodies here, this is kind of the death zone right in there. You know, as soon as the Prussians start getting into this range, that's where we're going to start hitting them with canister. And, you know, they're going to take start taking a lot of casualties from the skirmishers, from the line infantry back here. That's all. You can see them all firing. They're all engaged. I'm sure the artillery is getting ready. And there they go. And, you know, trying to cross this river, that's just never going to happen. I mean, they're just going to lose men so quickly as the skirmishers and the artillery just start pouring it into them. And it takes them forever to cross the river. I mean, it really does slow down the movement. And that's why you want to basically contain the Prussians behind this river line. Because if they try to move past it, just look how slowly they're moving. They're barely moving. It has such a degree of movement impairment, the river does. You know, and, you know, meanwhile, our guns are just zeroing in on them and blasting huge holes in them. You can see just raking holes in them. And, you know, look at this. They're just eating canister fire all the way across. Their skirmishers on the other side of the river are eating canister. I mean, this is great containment right here. There's no way they're going to, one battalion, one lone super courageous battalion of Prussians here is going to do anything against this, you know, this French force over here. The most they might manage to do if they get across the river, and I can't believe they've done that already. They've actually gotten across the river. And that's it. That's it. They took too many losses, their morale took too big a hit, and off they go. You know, and that's what the benefit is of setting up directly across this river is just how severely it slows down their movement. Now, this is the force I was talking about needed to be contained when I was talking about my, when I was talking about the strategy in the strategy session, is that some of the Prussian units have actually moved across the river on the southern side, and they're going to need to be contained. So here we are over at Ligny, and just checking things out. Like I said, I don't really plan on doing anything at Ligny because it's just not that important a target, given how much the objective on the Namur Road is worth. It kind of invalidates a lot of this battle because it's so worth it to just commit to just getting that objective. Because it's literally, like I said, it's worth 5,000 points every 20 minutes. And as I said, I go where the points are, and that is where the points are. There's really nothing else on the battlefield that can kind of contend with that kind of point value. So you can see some more Prussian units trying to make this approach across the river, and just look at this. Guns, skirmishers, infantry behind them, more guns. I mean, this is truly death to try and approach. You can try and stand here and shoot it out, but the skirmishers are going to get the better of the line infantry. You're in canister range of the artillery, and if you try and be brave like these boys here and cross the river, it's going to take you a long, long time, and you're going to get pounded on while you try to do it. You know, so that is the main reason we set up a line of containment like this. And I mean, we have plenty of troops back here. You know, even if by some freak of nature some of these Prussians broke through, I mean, I have entire divisions sitting back there, you know, hiding in the woods, just waiting for them to try and do something. All right, so we have Piat's brigade up, and don't for one second think I didn't see that Prussian infantry battalion moving across the river at Wagnelée. I certainly did, but they're going to have to stop and form square because there's cavalry over there, so I'm really not worried about it. Alright, so some of our men here are not getting the better as they're getting fired on by two Prussian battalions our leftmost line there. So we're bringing up another line in support, as well as we're going to kick out some skirmishers. And little do they know, I have an entire brigade coming in on their right flank, as you can see. And yes, I was talking about these guys. I have fully taken note of them. It is now 2 battalions. And they're going to get rocked by canister if they get any closer. And on top of that, we have cavalry that we could just send one. They're already getting hit by the canister, and we could just send one squadron out to see if we can force them into square, or as I like to say, or as I like to call it, going fishing. See if any of these units don't form square, and if they don't, like I said, they're going to get run down. So this is at least half a brigade, maybe a whole brigade out here. And they're getting peppered by the canister. They don't look like they're making any attempt to form square. So we're just going to see if we can't charge right into them. We've lost a few horses here, but ultimately our job here is just to run them off. See if we can break all these units apart, send them back across the river with just one little cavalry squadron. That's the importance of forming square if cavalry is close by. Is even a small cavalry squadron like this can run off a whole infantry battalion if they're not in square formation. I don't know how accurate that is historically. I don't know if cavalry really had that kind of power against a line infantry unit. Especially a small squadron like this, although they are putting in work right now. They have killed 106 men. It's got 113 points. They're really running the hell out of these units. They've kind of forgotten about one unit here. So we're going to see if we can get them, because they're not forming square either. So now we have engaged... we've engaged some of these Prussian units here. I'm going to see if we can start running some of them off. You can already see some of them are retreating. And this is pretty much the area we want to get in and control with Gerard's division. We want to establish a line of control kind of in here. Maybe not necessarily right up against the river because there's a lot of artillery there, but basically that's what we want to establish. Okay, they formed square. Good boys. Smart boys. And you can see we have gotten ourselves in canister range of one of these guns. So we're going to start moving our units and see if we can head off the rest of these Prussians and clean up the area so that the rest of Berthazine's division can advance and take St. Amand to Haie safely. And we certainly want to head this way anyway, just to get out of the canister range of this Prussian cannon that has gotten gutsy and set up across the river. But some of these Prussians are beginning to fall back. We're going to charge into them. That looks like a cannon right there. Maybe we can take that. And these guys are beginning to fall back. We're going to see if we can charge these guys and get them out of here. Maybe we can even get one of these guns. They've still got some infantry back here at Wagnelée. And anything we can siphon off of Wagnelée and get them to commit here, I'm kind of happy about. Because getting short on troops, as we've basically committed the last of Gerard's divisions to the battle here. So if I can thin off or siphon off any forces that the Prussians have at Wagnelée into this area, that'll make Wagnelée all the more easy to capture later on. So are we going to get this gun that's been pounding us? Ugh. We're taking a lot of canister fire trying to get, and you know the river works both ways. It'll take us just as long to, yeah, and I'm not going to attempt it. Because it would take us just as long to cross the river as it did the Prussians. And if we didn't learn our lesson from seeing what our artillery did to the Prussians when they tried to cross the river, then we're not learning anything. So yeah, I'm just going to pull my troops back and get them out of range of the canister fire. And we'll figure out another way to get that artillery out of there, because charging across the river is going to really take a long time and slow us down. So the good thing is we seem to be siphoning off some forces from the Wagnelée area, and they seem to be moving more towards Saint-Armand-la-Haie. And that's a good thing, because it'll make it easier for us to capture Wagnelée later on. So there's Piat. And we definitely have to organize his brigade a little bit. There we go. His brigade had gotten a little twisted up after that attack, but we've cleared out enough of these forces now that I think we'll be able to start moving troops from Bulldozing's division forward to take Saint-Armand-la-Haie, while troops from Gerard's division basically screen his flank so that he can move in and capture that objective. So there we go. We have Piat's brigade. So we've only committed one brigade from Gerard's division. These other two brigades are of Bulldozing's division, and one of these brigades we're going to use to help Piat's brigade screen the advance. We're going to get some skirmishers out, and then the other brigade of Bulldozing's division, that is the brigade that will advance to capture Saint-Armand-la-Haie. We just have to get the last few bit of these Prussians kind of out of here. And there's nothing really happening over here. Now this square is definitely losing more men than it's killing, but they're serving a good purpose in that they're stopping the cavalry from doing everything. I'm willing to take a few extra losses for that, because I know in the overall grand scheme of things, we're inflicting way more losses than we're taking. If I were to click on Napoleon, you would see it's probably pretty drastic difference. And basically, I've brought some of the cavalry up here just to stop any kind of Prussian attempt to turn my right flank in that gap between Ligny and Saint-Armand. They don't look too serious about doing it, but just the fact that they put troops out there on my flank is reason enough for me to move some troops forward to stall them. I certainly have the troops to spare down there. However, up here, we're starting to get a little thin. We're not in bad shape. We still have, plenty of troops in this area, but certainly we're going to need to bring up some reserves to take on Wagnelée. All right, so we're moving Dufour's brigade forward, and the idea here is that we will hopefully be able to take the Saint-Armand-la-Haie objective. We're using our cavalry division here to basically screen whatever forces are at Wagnelée, but as you can see, we have used up pretty much all of Gerard's defenses. We have a battery running away. I don't know why. That battery is pretty far back. Oh, you know what? I'll bet you that's a battery we captured. And now they're routed. Yeah, okay. Because the standard complement, I think, is 220, 240. And I still see all the guns of that battery, so that was probably a gun we captured that routed. And we'll start bringing our guns up. You can see the Prussians are starting to pull back. They still have some units out here, though. We're going to have to detach some units to deal with them. And that looks like a cavalry unit right there. So we're going to detach a unit right here. and put them in square to cover the flanks so that the cavalry can't charge in and ruin our advance. So this is kind of risky right here because I'm basically forming square right in their face and hoping they just stand there. And they do. Now they could have charged forward and probably broken us up before we had a chance to form square. But too late now. Alright, so we've done a good job of clearing these Prussians out over here. We could probably start to, as soon as we finish capturing Saint Amand La Haie, we can start to establish our line of containment after we've pushed them off. So there goes the horse. And we now have the La Haie objective. You can see it's a 10-minute objective. And I'm going to detach this tiny little squadron here, or whatever, battalion, only 93 men, and just see if I can detail them to capture, to shooting at the fort and trying to shoot anybody out of the fort that's in there. You can see a bunch of Prussians are retreating. Can we please go and give these guys the bulldozer? And here we go. We have 3 battalions charging into one Prussian battalion here, and it should knock them out of the way fairly easily. And yeah, we're just bulldozing them. And we're going to continue the charge here, see if we can knock this other battalion out of the way, and just really rout them out of this area before we set up our kind of line of containment here. There's still a unit in the fort, so we can't do that. So let's set these bozos up in line and have them start shooting at the fort, and see if we can shoot them out of there, and possibly, if we can get into that fort, that's really going to stop up any kind of Prussian advance down here. Alright, so we have pushed back a lot of the Prussian forces now. At this point we'll pull our men back and just try and sit here and suckle on the Saint Amand La Haie objective until it has run out. In the meantime, we'll start bringing up our other brigades. We have Lagarde's brigade and Piat's brigade sitting back there. And see if we can charge these skirmishers and get them out of the way, but more than likely they'll just run off at our approach. So we have 7 minutes and 50 seconds left of hanging on to this objective. And we're going to set up squares on the right side because there's still cavalry there, and see if we can shoot them out. Alright, the Prussians have run out of the fort. That's good. That gives us a foothold on the advanced front there in the fort to shoot at anything that comes near it. So we got some guns coming up. Bring up the guns. Place the guns. And we'll start advancing our troops to kind of start meandering down a line kind of this way. I don't want to get... This is the one area where we're going to have to let go of the river a little bit because the Prussians have kind of beaten us to the punch as far as setting up cannon across the river. They've kind of got the river right there, you know, across. They got a bridge here and they got their cannon placed pretty good. Which means they have the river on this part of the line. But we have the objective. So if we have to bend our line a little bit more northwards or northwestwards to stay away from the river, we'll do that. And these bozos need to go. I don't want them shooting up my square, so we're going to get them out of there. Give them the old bayonet. And we got a nice big 500-man something unit, so there's a tough fight going on here, though. Looks like we're getting the best of it, though. I can't imagine them. We're definitely racking up more casualties than we're inflicting. So there they go. Vive la France. Oh, I believe they surrendered. That looks like a surrender to me. They just stopped in place. Alright, good. So we can bring our unit back and set up our line right here. And you can see we're starting to link our line kind of this way. Looks like I want to use Piat's brigade again and just give these guys the bulldozer. I'm not sure that was really, that might have been a little bit too aggressive a move, even for me. Yeah, well, don't worry about those guys. So we're hitting this line. What I'm worried about is catching canister fire as I'm moving forward here. I'm not worried that I'm not going to win here. This is 3 battalions against 1, so we're certainly going to win. I just don't want to get drawn into charging every unit over there and then, you know, and then being too close to the artillery. Seem to be pushing all these Prussian units back. I really should be getting some skirmish units out here because I'm sure these skirmishes are getting the better of it. Skirmishers just do better against line units. Yeah, and that's what I was worried about. You can see now I'm getting hit with canister fire. So I need to actually bring that... I mean, it's good that we ran off those units, but that was... It wasn't really necessary. We could have just set up our line and shot them out of there without exposing our troops to artillery fire. So that was, yeah, and now we're on the return trip here. We're eating some canister fire from the guns across the river. So I'm double quicking them. I kind of realized that was a mistake. I didn't really need to be that aggressive. Really, I should just be focusing on setting up my line, getting my skirmishers out in front, and holding my position rather than trying to just be overly aggressive. I mean, that's what we've got set up all over here is basically just you know, containing the Prussians. So the Prussians are now sending some skirmishers out this way. Not that they have any intention of going up against cavalry, but what they want to do is try and shoot at my guns and get them to rout so it's safer for their infantry to approach. I hate that, so I'm absolutely going to send some cavalry forward and just run them off so they don't get a chance to stop and shoot at my guns. And then once there, I'm going to leave my cavalry out here so they can't pull that trick again. You know, because skirmishers are absolutely no match for cavalry. You know, and I just want to stop them from shooting at my guns. And they're turning and running. And we'll keep some of this cavalry out here because you can see the Prussians are building up an infantry force kind of on the right on the southern end and northern end of the Ligny River on the southern banks here. I just want to be able to drive them back out of there sooner or later. I'm going to have the cavalry here just to hold them. I've got more important things to deal with up around Saint-Armand-la-Haie, so I don't want to deal with that quite yet. But that cavalry will certainly hold them in place for now. So we have the fort now. That's a good position to have. We can shoot at any of the cavalry sitting out here. And we're starting to bring our lines forward here. And here comes some more Prussians. And this is Viller's brigade. And I believe we're gonna We have, who's this? This is, yeah, Piat's Brigade again that we have. They've already seen a lot of action. And again, it looks like I'm going to try and be aggressive here and just bulldoze these guys out of here. And like I said, I don't know how necessary this really is, because really what I should be focusing on is getting skirmishers out in front of these units here, because right now against these skirmishers, I'm almost sure they're not getting the best of it, because that's just how it is when line infantry goes up against skirmishers. The skirmishers do better. But no, every Prussian unit that's coming across the river here, I'm like trying to hit them and drive them back. And like I said, I'm not sure that's really necessary. It might be better to just set up my line and get skirmishers out and beat them in the long run, rather than continuously spend my forces to... It's no doubt I'm going to win this charge. It's one battalion and I'm hitting them with a whole brigade. That's not the point. The point is I'm using up my men in these constant charges to get these units out of here. And I'm not sure that's the smarter move. I maybe should have just continued setting up my line northwesterly and getting skirmishers out in front. I mean, yeah, obviously I'm going to win. It's a whole brigade charging one battalion. But now I'm going to have to, you know, reorder them and pull them back and start setting up my line. And it's only temporary. These guys aren't, none of these guys are routed. They're just going to, they're going to get together and come forward again. But, you know, it may give me time to get my line going and get my skirmishers out. Well, all these skirmishers have withdrawn. Probably more due to the charge than anything else. Alright, now we're starting to get some skirmishers out here. They've pulled back their gun line across the bridge, I've noticed, too. They've got a lot of artillery movement going on back here near Bry. I'm not sure what that's about, but we'll keep an eye on that. And now some of this infantry that was set up over here is moving back across the Ligny with all this cavalry here. That kind of shut the door on them as far as, you know, really trying to move around my flank. As we now have, you know, some of the guard cavalry in position here. No, don't do this, guys. Am I really going to do this? That's not going to work. That's too far. I'm greedy for guns, but that's too far. That's never going to work. And the Wagnelée objective has been activated. So we have captured the St. Armand La Haie objective. And the Wagnelée objective has now opened up, and you can see it off in the distance here. It is well behind the Prussian lines. And a direct assault across the river is probably not a good idea. And I usually never do that. What we're going to do is set up a pinning force to engage the Prussians in a kind of a lazy skirmish with the units across the river, and we're going to bring up the Young Guard as well as some more of the Guard cavalry, and basically outflank Wagnelée and take it from the rear essentially. So I'm moving my cavalry division a little further forward just to kind of more seriously engage the forces at Wagnelée here. And really get them thinking that I'm going to attack across the river. Of course, I have no intention of attacking across the river. And look how far back that objective is. And you can see we have more cavalry coming up. This was that 14th Cavalry Division. We have their guns coming up. So we will begin moving them around the Wagnelée position. We also have another battery here from Berthazine's division we can start bringing up. We'll bring them up somewhere in here, and then once they're in position, we will move these two front lines out of the way to open the gun line and then cover them with skirmishers. So, all right, we got a lot of more forces, a lot of more forces coming up in the Wagnelée area here. So I see cavalry, I see infantry, so they got a whole lot more coming, which means we're going to need to have a whole lot more coming. But right now we need to finish setting up this line of containment in the Saint Armand-La Haie area, and then we'll worry about Wagnelée. Like I said, it's still very early in the battle. You know, we're only about 2 hours into the battle. We have plenty of time. And there is the artillery reserve of the 3rd Corps, and they've racked up almost 2,000 points already. That's just the reserve artillery. And I know back here somewhere is Van Dam. There he is. There he is. And we have 9,200 points just in Van Dam's corps. Alrighty. So here we have the Young Guard, almost 5,000 men. And we're going to start bringing them up behind the cavalry. Now, the Young Guard is not like the Old Guard or even the Middle Guard. They are part of the Imperial Guard, no doubt, but they're not kind of the same troop quality. They're like regular troops. They're like level 6, level 5, level 6. I don't think there's any level 5s. I think they're all level 6s. You know, but I mean, you can have regular line infantry, you know, be level 6. So they're solid, dependable troops, no doubt about it. They're not bad troops by any means, but they're not elite the way the Middle and Old Guard are. So I'm a little more prone to using them in general battle than I would be to use either the Middle Guard or the Old Guard. These guys aren't doing too bad. Taking a couple of losses, but that's to be expected. They're containing infantry, and I'm sure my artillery is more than making up for it. You know, but this is only a temporary measure here. You don't want to contain infantry with just cavalry for an extended period of time, because eventually the cavalry will just get too shot up to be effective at containing the infantry. So we're going to have to get some infantry up here to repulse this kind of turning movement that the Prussians are kind of feebly trying to make. They're telegraphing it. We've really decimated this front part of the line here. You can see, just look at all the bodies on the ground from these Prussian units that got so close to us. You know, our cannon really tore them to pieces, and they've got a couple of guns out here and a couple of skirmisher units, but not much else. Not much else. We really blew that part of the line to pieces, and they've kind of all pulled back. So I'm going to make a quick trip to the fridge, guys. I will be right back, and we will pick this up. Alright guys, and I am back. So we got our cavalry a little closer. We're engaging their guns. I don't want to get them too close because they actually have a lot of artillery over there and a lot of infantry over there. This is a bluff anyway. I don't really plan on attacking from this area. Really, I'm just trying to get as many of the Prussians to the river line as possible, so I can use the cavalry that I'm bringing up as well as the young guard to outflank them. Alright, so the one thing about clearing out this area now is we've effectively brought ourselves some time to set up our line. And we're going to basically deploy Piat's brigade in line to take up the rest of this position. Now this is never going to work, guys. All we got to do is bring cavalry forward, and then, you know, that's the one good thing about having our cavalry right here is we can basically use them to run anything off that kind of comes into this position. And that'll give us time to set up the line better, because right now we only have like one little skirmisher unit out here. We need to get more out here. These guys are engaged, so we'll probably be able to run them off, or they might just retreat before the cavalry even gets near them. Nope, looks like we're going to hit them cleanly. And there we go. Off they run. And our guns are coming up, so we will bring... What we'll do is move some of this infantry out of the way so the guns can move forward. And look at all this activity building up in Bry. If I get another shot of that. I'm not quite sure what they're doing there. And our cavalry is just running the infantry off. One of the lines in the rear have formed square. And now that this line has formed square, we can send out some skirmishers to just tag them. Looks like one of our guns has turned this way too. And we're going to bring the cavalry in kind of back in here to keep these units in square so we can just pick at them with skirmishers. Now, just to forewarn you guys, at about 1654, I accidentally hit the stop recording button on my keyboard. I realized I did it, so I just paused the game and restarted the video. So at 1654, this video will end, and I'll just open the next one, and we'll keep going to 1730. What actually happened is that I just put my my drink down on the keyboard and accidentally hit the button. Now, this is not going to work, I don't think. This was a gutsy move, a little too gutsy. You know, I thought I saw an opening to get to this battery, and, you know, in reality, it's just not going to work out. There's two squares right here protecting the guns. It's going to be tough to charge into this gun line, you know, with these squares right here. Yeah, so they keep charging the little infantry line. We did get one gun. Yeah, now they want to charge the infantry square. It's tough when there's squares in such proximity to to the guns to really just get at the guns. That's why squares are great for protecting guns. So yeah, that was kind of a bad idea. I did get 1 or 2 guns, but it wasn't worth sending my cavalry forward. And again, the Prussians are moving across the river to the south, trying to send skirmishers forward to pick at my cavalry. And the thing about skirmishers trying to run towards cavalry is, you know, they get close and then they run. They get close, then they run. You know, so skirmishers aren't really that effective against cavalry because they just won't, you know, stand. So, all right, we're pulling these guys back. This battery pretty much was protected by these 2 squares. I couldn't get to them. That was a risky thing to do anyway. Sometimes I'm a little too aggressive and I take unwarranted risks, so to speak. And that was definitely one of them. That was a little too aggressive. Like, aggression is good if it gets you something, you know, if you net something from it. But you know, all I got was like 1 gun, you know, and I ran off a tiny little battalion, so that really wasn't worth it. Alright, so now I gotta do a little unit Jenga here, and pull some units back and shift some units out of the way to open up the line of fire for the cannon. And now we gotta play the old passing game, where we find the best path to get to where we want to go here. Alright, so you can see we have a lot of cavalry moving off on the Prussian right flank. And as I said, we're going to start outflanking the Wagnelée position rather than trying to take it from across the river here, which would be hard work and would also pretty much, you know, negate any kind of line of containment that we're trying to set up. This is pretty much where we're trying to set up the line of containment. And then we'll move around the Prussian right and see if we can take Wagnelée from the rear. Kind of come at them from the northwest. So I'm just getting skirmishers out in position now to deal with these units as they come across the river. Most of their artillery support has fallen back. I'm not sure where it went. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to pull off of this position. This was a great setup for their guns, and they seem to have pulled them away. I'm not sure where they went, and I don't know what's going on back here. But I'm going to start, you only need a couple of cavalry brigades, battalions, squadrons to really protect the guns. So I'm going to start using some of my cavalry to buffer this line that I've got going here. This isn't a super strong line yet. I've got to position it a little better. I've got to open the line of fire for the guns whose line of sight is basically completely blocked right now. So I have to start getting some of these units out of the way. Now there's a whole bunch of cavalry over here, so anything I move into this area pretty much has to form square. Which is okay, there's nothing really but cavalry over there. No little mini skirmisher unit over here. But yeah, what I'm basically trying to do here is open the line of fire for the guns. And the forward part of this whole Prussian line is pretty much collapsed. They're trying to move off to the right here and engage my cavalry. However, as I said, the infantry will always have to stop and form square. So they can't really push forward. However, they're going to start shooting at the cavalry at this point. And, you know, our artillery is obviously going to help. They'll batter down squares quickly. But we have to get some infantry up here. And the people who are most handily placed are the Imperial Guard. So we have the Grenadiers here, and the Chasseurs over here. And flip a coin. Who's it going to be? The Grenadiers or the Chasseurs? And it looks like the Chasseurs win. So we're going to bring the Chasseurs up. Now with cavalry, infantry, and artillery, we're gonna totally dominate this position. And little by little, some of the Prussians are still trying to come forward here, but this isn't gonna work because I have skirmishers, I have guns over here. I brought another gun battery up over to the right of this position over here too, I believe. Plus we have cavalry here, so I can always just move the cavalry forward and force these units into square. These guys have taken a beating, probably from artillery, so we're just going to move them into the church. So LaFoll's division is doing excellent. They've inflicted 3,100 casualties. They've taken 700 casualties. So they're doing a great job at holding this position. And we are now blasting away at the skirmishers out there with artillery. Sorry. This battery's doing fantastic. They've inflicted 1,252 casualties. And that is what artillery can do for you at close range. Now, some of our guns have fallen back, and that's probably because I've neglected them and they're out of ammo. So we need to do some supply wagon runs. If you let guns run out of ammo, they will do that. They will limber up and kind of pull back kind of right behind their battery line because they're really of no use while they have no ammo. And so if you see that, if you see some of your guns have pulled back behind the battery, that just means they're out of ammo, they've limbered up and pulled back. And really it just means to call them back up and do a supply wagon run. All right, so we're halfway there as far as opening our line of fire for our infantry, artillery. However, there's not much left over here. They've pretty much all these Prussians have pulled back. There's a lot of activity going on back here. I want to see what's going on. So more Prussians coming forward, but it's just infantry. We'll hit them with skirmishers. I have a cavalry squadron back here, so they're not going to be able to come forward because they would have to form square. And, I mean, that's just a cheap engagement distance trick, using, you know, plopping a cavalry squadron here and there just so that anything that advances towards you can't charge. They have to form square once they come into range of that cavalry squadron. And like I said, that's just an engagement distance trick I use. Basically said I don't have to pay close attention to a position. And this will finally open up the rest of the artillery's line of sight. Now here's a battery just sitting back here that could be put to use up here. So we're going to move them forward, and I believe we're going to take this battery over here, which isn't really doing too much and isn't really necessary, and we're going to move them into the center of that line over by St. Amand Haie later on. And in the meantime, we're just blasting this unit in front here with canister fire, and they're not going to last long. That's the problem. The units can't approach. There's artillery everywhere. You know, guns everywhere. And this little batch of men right here, they're not going to be able to sit there for long because I'm bringing the Imperial Guard up to set up behind this hedge line. And we're going to start ripping into them, too. You know, it was kind of at you know, every little bit away along this line, I have artillery set up. So there's really no safe avenue of approach. These men coming down here along the road here, you know, they've got skirmishers right across the river, and they've got a massed battery right across the bridge. And they're just going to waste them. They're just going to lay waste to them. Just like these guys are getting the crap blown out of them from this battery right here. So, all right, we have about 10,000 points. We've inflicted 10,000 casualties total. We've taken about 2,800. So, pretty much par for the course. We're doing okay. All right, so here's our 14th Cavalry Division under the Lord. And we're going to start moving him into position kind of around the flank of Wagnelée. I'm just thinking, how best do I want to do this? I want to get them across the river. There's a lot of Prussian cavalry over here. I got to watch them and see what they're doing. Cavalry alone is not going to be enough to take this position. That's why I'm bringing the young guard up as well. The cavalry is just here to set up, get some artillery going, and basically occupying the flank of this position. But yeah, we're still going to need to bring some more men up. But like I said, we have plenty of time. No reason at all to rush this. And we have, what do we have? We have the young guard already. Boy, did they make good time. So this cavalry appears to, oh boy, is there a lot of Prussian cavalry out there. There's cavalry here. They've got a lot of troops. Look at this artillery battery. Mass battery set up back here by Bry. They certainly still have a lot of troops available to them, and which is why we're not being too aggressive here. We only want to engage what we have to engage. You know, beyond that, it is always easier to defend than to attack. So we've got our boys in the fort who are shooting at the Prussian cavalry out there who are just standing there. So you can see most of my forward troops here are pretty much skirmishers and artillery. Most of my battalions, my full battalions, are kind of keeping back behind the lines. And really that's just to protect them from enemy artillery fire, and, you know, they're here as a counterattacking force if I need them. But, you know, I either have them back behind the main lines or in the woods here where they're a little more hidden, you know, just so that, you know, they're not constantly taking artillery bombardment. I mean, the square is, but I kind of have to leave that square there because of the Prussian cavalry by the fort. You know, I don't want to leave an easy opening for the cavalry to come through and hit this gun battery from the side. And this was definitely a trip to the fridge or something, because the camera is not moving at all. So I probably took a quick run to do something or other. And it looks like I'm back. And we can see some of these Prussians are withdrawing. You can see the Imperial Guard approaching. Now, do they have any cannon with them? No. I need to grab some cannon. Alright, so there's a battery. and we will bring them forward as well, because we want to be able to basically do this with artillery and not necessarily infantry. I would like to not have to use the Imperial Guard any more than I really have to. I'd rather just bombard this position and get them to pull back across the river. It shouldn't be too hard with them being stuck in square. And I'm just placing a cavalry unit in between these two batteries. Again, it's just an engagement distance trick. I'm just putting them there so that any unit that approaches the guns will have to stop and form square, even if I'm not there to see it. And that's all the cavalry is there to do, is manipulate the Prussian infantry with their engagement distances and just force them into square. And like I said, that's just a trick of engagement distance, because the AI will always form their infantry into square when it comes within 250 yards of enemy cavalry. Regardless of whether the cavalry does anything or not, that's just what the AI does when enemy cavalry comes within range of their infantry, or they move their infantry into that same range of enemy cavalry. They just have to stop and form square. So it's really a great way to just use a single squadron to stop an entire enemy brigade from attacking your position, just by forcing them to stop and form square. It's just kind of a stupidness of the way the engagement distances work in this game. If you know what they are and how to abuse them and how they work, it's just easy to use single cavalry squadrons to do that. And I'm just forming this unit into square because I see a Prussian cavalry unit approaching. I don't really know if they plan on doing anything, but better safe than sorry. Just form them up into square and let them sit there. My goodness, look at all that Prussian artillery back there by Bry. That is a lot of guns. Now, even from that distance, which is pretty far, they're going to be able to put a good bombing on this position just by the sheer number of guns that are out over there. I mean, that is, my goodness, that's a lot of guns. So the Prussians have once again moved across the field. I have no idea what my supply wagon thinks it's doing. What it thinks it's doing is using road movement, but no, that's going to get you captured, dummies. Come back here. That's why you got to take command of these supply wagons so they don't go wandering off. And as you can see, our cavalry division is getting set up on the Prussian right flank. Got our guns in position. We can start bombing away on some of these guys. Here is the Young Guard, and they have 2 batteries of artillery with them. And we will bring the Young Guard over even further onto the Prussian flank here. Oh yeah, that's just a brigade. I want to move the entire division. Dummy. Where is the division commander? Oh, no, that's Chartrand's brigade. Yeah, you halt. Where is the division commander? Oh, there he is. Okay, so yeah, we want to move the whole division as a whole. And we're just building up our forces on the Prussian right flank here. And I'm thinking about, as this position forms up, I'm thinking about how I'm going to go about this. Attacking the Prussians at Wagnelée and taking this position. And okay, So it's going to take a little while for the young guard to move all the way up here. Meanwhile, we'll just let our artillery sit here and start softening the Prussians up. Now you can see we've done an excellent job in drawing the Prussians kind of on this side of the objective. So right now it's pretty open. You notice there's nothing here in front of the objective from this side. All right, so we have Cambronne and the chasseurs of the old guard in position, and we're just waiting for our guns to come up. Oh, you're kidding me! I'm gonna charge them. I'm gonna go serious old guard mode right here. Wow. Boy, I must really want these guys out of here. This has to be a terrifying sight for the Prussians sitting there stuck in square to have the entirety of the chasseurs of the old guard approaching them in column, an assault column. What a scary sight that must be. All right, so the Prussian cavalry's making a move here. However, let's see if they get turned around or if they're able to cross the river. Nope. Nope. Too dangerous a position. They're gonna get bombed on by the artillery, and it takes too long to cross the river. Oh boy, look at this. Vive la France. Oh my. That is a lot of battalions about to crash into the square. And these guys are merciless in hand-to-hand combat. I mean, just merciless. You guys are gonna get slaughtered. Slaughtered. And they run off instantly. And a lone old guard battalion has decided they're going to take out this square too, and yeah, they're going to wreck them. I mean, like I said, the Imperial Guard do not lose in hand-to-hand combat. They just don't. And yeah, they're wasting them. Off they run. So all right, we've cleared off that position fairly quickly. And let's bring the old guard back and set them up. We'll let our artillery do the rest of the work here. And here they come. And our guns are a-coming. And we'll set them up forward of this bush line here. Like I said, I don't want to commit the Imperial Guard too heavily. I'm surprised I even bothered to do those two charges, but they were really good. They were really easy charges. I mean, it was just the whole chasseurs of the Imperial Guard against, one or two squares. It was a guaranteed easy win. And I don't think it's going to work for you anymore now, guys, than it did before. You're going to get bombed on while you're trying to cross this river. But I'm going to send some cavalry across just to see if I can catch these guys. I think they're going to turn around and run too. If I can get across the river, I can charge them. And here we go. And yep, we're running them off. And they surrendered. Alright, so we'll pull our cavalry back now. Now, it may seem like I'm letting the Prussians distract me with this little charade that's going on here on the southern part of the battlefield. But it's not going to take long for me to set up a ridiculous containment line. And I'm waiting for the Young Guard to come up at Wagnelée anyway. So there's nothing really pressing over there I need to do until the Young Guard get up there, and they still have a ways to go. So it's worth it to bring this battery up and you know, set up a line right here, bring some units forward to set up a fortress, and put some skirmishers in front of the guns, and just make this position impregnable. There's still a lot of Prussian infantry wandering around back here. You know, so it's worth it. And it won't take me long to do. The guns are almost in position. I'm going to move some cavalry up on the left, some infantry out on the right, put up some skirmishers in front of the guns. And I'm going to get some skirmisher units out in front of this line. And basically what I'm doing here is just moving some units forward, just to make it safe to bring the guns up. This Prussian units are pretty close. If I bring cavalry forward, they're not going to be able to advance. If I can get some skirmishers and line units out there, they'll have to pull back. And let's see what's going on over here. So the Prussians are bringing some forces forward. They've got some cavalry out over here, but we've got squares kind of all along this area to protect the guns. No big deal here. We'll be able to stop this cavalry. These guys, I don't know where they're heading anyway. But yeah, a whole lot of more cavalry coming in over here. The cavalry stuck over here, really can't do anything. We got a bunch of squares as well as the fort occupied. So this position in here is pretty safe. This cavalry can't do anything. In fact, maybe I can bring this line unit up to shoot at them since it's protected on either side by squares. This whole position is pretty safe, but it has done the job of attracting kind of all the enemy units to this side facing this way while we're setting up on their flank. We've got cavalry in position here. We're bringing the Young Guard up behind, and we're going to set them up in here. And then I'll have to think about how I'm going to use those forces to capture the Wagnelée objective. And once we capture the Wagnelée objective, then it's kind of easy money all the way through the rest of the scenario, because all we have to do is contain the Prussian line and get some forces up on the Namur Road here where this objective is, and just sit there and rack up an obscene amount of points. Where are we now? Oh, I think we're on the far southern side of the field now, and I'm thinking about bringing some of the cavalry forces that are just sitting there behind Gerard's corps, and you know, maybe we can use them. There's Hulot's division and Gerard. So this one is the closest one, I think. So yeah, we have Chastel's division of cavalry. And I'm just going to start siphoning some of these forces kind of over to where the fighting is. Because they're just sitting there doing nothing right now. And bring them up on the right of the Imperial Guard. So as you can see, we got our guns set up now, and this whole thing just retired right across the river as quickly as they could. So the cavalry here did a great job in stopping up that Prussian force from doing anything, and long enough for me to bring the chasseurs up, set up guns, and just start blowing them to pieces. So you can see some units running off. These units are pretty much pinned down across the river now. And we'll kick off some skirmishes just to screen the guns, because that's what I always do, just so the guns don't get hit. And that'll be pretty much be it for this line of containment right here. This will hold against anything the Prussians decide to try and send across the river. Because I'm going to have cavalry on my left, I'm going to bring up cavalry on my right. It's just going to be impenetrable. And I'm just setting up a traditional infantry fortress here. I'm bringing up assault columns behind the front lines here, just in case I need a counterattacking force. I've kind of got a cavalry unit serving as the left part of the fortress, but I mean, that's cool because anything that approaches that position will be forced into square, and the artillery will just wreak even more havoc on them. That's not traditionally the way I do it, but, you know, it'll work. Not much going on in the center. We've pretty much blown apart anything they had in the center here. You can see just the unbelievable amount of bodies on the other side of the river here. You can see this looks like an entire battalions just died where they were standing. You can actually see the lines. And we'll do a quick supply wagon run as we're moving by here. So we got an infantry square here that's holding up these cavalry units, and now we've got our guns field of fire open. We could use some artillery in the middle of our lines here. All right, guys, that was the end of that video. As I said, I accidentally hit the stop button of on my keyboard, so not to worry. We will queue up the next one here. What? Oh, all right, that's still recording. All right, so we want this one. Am I still recording? Yes, I am. Okay, God, that confuses me sometimes. Okay, so we want this. All right, let me pause that a second when I make this full screen. Okay, so here we go. I had paused. What I did was pause the game and then just started another video. So here we are, same time around. I think it's a minute later. Nothing changed. And like I said, we'll take this to 17:30. So another 2 hours of the battle. So we've got some Prussian forces across the river here. We're just bombing on them with this battery here. See if we can bring the guns a little closer and maybe edge them into canister range. And just move this cavalry unit out of the way a little bit. All right, so you can see we have built up quite a force on the Prussian right flank now. We have the 14th Cavalry Division along with their battery of horse artillery. We have the Young Guard with 2 batteries of artillery and 2 brigades. So we have quite a force here, and we just got to skillfully use them to take the Wagnelée objective. And the first thing we're going to have to do is move the Young Guard over a little bit and get them more in here. Right now they're kind of behind the cavalry. But we really want to take, this is the objective out here, so we really want to get our men out here. And we're also going to start moving our gun batteries forward so that we really can establish artillery dominance by getting, you know, we're going to have something like 8, 16, you know, 8, 16, 18, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 30 guns. Basically, we're going to have like 30 guns out here, 32 guns, something like that. So we can really start bombing these units that are facing the wrong way. And a lagging brigade commander here just needs to get himself into position with his brigade. So I believe we will open the proceedings here with an artillery bombardment to soften the Prussian position up. The first thing we have to do is clear this out in here. These Prussian units back here. There's a gun battery here. And some Prussian infantry. However, they're all facing the same way, so once we get these gun batteries set up, we're going to begin to really wreak havoc. But basically, we got to get this out of here, and then we have to get this objective. And that's going to take a little bit of creative thinking, not too much, because I've assaulted positions like this before. So we're going to start moving the young guard out over to our left, even further onto the Prussian right. And the biggest concern here is this big gun battery sitting right by the objective. Obviously, we can't just move up and sit there by the objective because these guns will blow us to pieces. So they have to go. However, they're protected by cavalry, even though that cavalry is facing the wrong way right now. So we're going to have to think of a way to take those guns and be able to deal with the Prussian cavalry over there. And I believe that will probably go down in the next episode. As I said, I'm really taking my time and doing this right. So I'm in no hurry to capture Wagnelée. I'd rather set the position up correctly. And we moved our guns forward, and we are now walloping this unit with canister fire, just as I had wanted. Got our guns set up over here. We've opened this position up. You can hear that canister just ripping into that unit. The Prussian cavalry has backed off after standing in front of this fort. And they've also backed up over here. And I think we're going to try and get this square out of here because they're a little tuckered out. And see if we can get a fresh unit in there. And as you can see, the entire threat across the river here has just evaporated with the approach of the Imperial Guard, set up in a classic fortress formation here. Unbreakable, unpenetrable, nothing will get through this. And we even have cavalry as part of our little fortress here, so anything that comes forward here is going to have to form square because of the presence of the cavalry. And then the artillery would rip them to pieces, so... See what I mean? An infantry unit comes into range and they have to form square. And this isn't going to last long because the artillery is right here, and even though they're not in canister range, they're just going to put a walloping on the square. So that's why I have these cavalry squadrons here, is that anything that approaches instantly has to stop and form square and sit there. I actually don't want to get these guys shot at, so we're going to pull them back. But you can see some of the cavalry I had pulled over from the area around Ligny. They're coming up to sit on the right flank of the Imperial Guard. And there they are, moving forward. And we might grab some more cavalry and start bringing them around, because I don't know how much more I'm going to need at Wagnelée. But better, these troops are just sitting here doing nothing, so I might as well use them. So here we have Strauss's 9th Division of Cavalry. Oh, and again, I have all the troops on take charge. So or all the officers are on take charge. So I have to take the brigade commanders off take charge so we can move the division as a whole. There's Breston's brigade. And yeah, this is Chastel's 10th Division, and they're coming up on the right of the Imperial Guard. So it looks like I'm going to try and send them off to the west. Yeah, and have the other cavalry division, the 9th Division, that's moving up from further back, have them take up position on the right flank of the Imperial Guard. The reason being is that the Imperial Guard is in no danger right now. They have a dominant position, so I can afford to wait a little bit longer to bring up cavalry to support them on the right. They're in a perfect spot right here, and they have cavalry on their left. However, the one thing I did not do with Chastel's division is after I set their position on the command map, I didn't go and take charge of the officers afterwards. So that's going to result in, because they're under AI control, as they move by the Imperial Guard position, they're going to come into engage distance of the Prussians, and they're going to go a little wild. Just because I didn't have the AI, I didn't have the officers on take charge. I had them under AI control, and when that happens, you never know what the AI is going to do. And in this case, you'll see they get a little aggressive and they run across the river and take out a whole bunch of Prussians. It's cool. I recall them and get them back. All right, so we have a massive grand battery of artillery set up. They look like they've just gotten going here, and they're bombing into the flank of these Prussian units. And it looks like we're going to send a squadron out from the rear here and see if we can capture this gun line. Now, I could have sent the whole brigade, the whole cavalry brigade, but being as we're approaching the infantry from the rear, we might be able to sneak up on them in more of a stealth approach, and, you know, with just one squadron, you know, be able to hit these guys in the flank and run them off, and take the gun line and drive the infantry off in one shot. Now, if we could do that with one squadron and save the rest of the brigade for what's going on down here, so much the better, because there's still artillery down here, there's more another battalion of infantry here, and there's cavalry here. So if we can get this area here with just one squadron and preserve the rest of our battalion, you can see our canister is just ripping into these units down here. The first one is already withdrawn, and we're pounding on these guys back here now. So we are nice and wrapped around the Prussian flank here. Now let's see if we can get these guns. So far this unit has made no notice of us. Oh, now they see us. Now they're turning, but they're not necessarily forming square yet. Let's see what we can do here. Can we get them? So they formed line. We're starting to run on these batteries now. They're shooting at us. And okay, they're running off because they're not in square. So let's see if we can get the rest of these guns. No, don't chase the infantry. Get the guns, dummy. Get the guns. Yeah, they're retreating. However, the cavalry is not making any, the artillery is not making any effort to turn and face us. Oh, now they are. Let's see if we can charge them before they get a chance to shoot at us. All right, go get them, boys. The infantry's gone. All you need is the guns now. All right, here we go. Capture the rest of this battery. And some of this artillery is trying to move off now. Let's see if we can get them before they get to that square. And that's it. We've captured the entire battery. Alright, that's enough, boys. Get out of there. Alright, so we captured that whole gun battery and drove off a battalion, and we only lost 9 men. And we made a cool 269 points. Now, this is another case of me not taking command, and I have over-aggressive officers. So, no, that's not what we wanted. Bring the cavalry back. Over-aggressive officers. Come on back here, and we'll just take charge of everybody so they don't do that. Alright, so here is the young guard in position. Good troops, but not amazing troops. Definitely solid troops. And this is what we need to think about now. Is how we're going to get that out of there. Like I said, I'm not sure I do that in this episode. Maybe I start doing it at the very tail end, but I come up with a good plan for it. Alright, so some Prussian infantry has moved across the bridge. We'll turn our skirmishers to face them and start kicking out skirmishers from here. There's also some Prussian cavalry that's threatening from across the river. I have a square here holding these guys up. And these guys are obviously too tiny. So we're just going to start to kick out some skirmisher units here. And see if we can get them up in range of that infantry unit without attracting the attention of this cavalry squadron over here. No, that's too far forward, guys. You'll definitely attract the attention of the cavalry if you go that far forward. So I'm going to bring another infantry unit out in square as a blocker for this unit so that I can safely have these skirmishers out here and not really have this cavalry be a threat. So these skirmishers can now fire at this infantry unit relatively safely. However, you can see the Prussians have brought a lot of cavalry and some more infantry forward of this position. So we're going to have to start paying close attention. We don't have any guns here. This is kind of a thin line here. I'm kind of using cavalry in place of the guns to hold back the enemy. And I'm doing more of the same over here. Just bringing cavalry forward to stop the infantry from charging. But really I have to get some guns in here. Kind of right in the middle position here. So that I'm able to start pounding away on this position. You see a lot of Prussian cavalry back here. And plenty of infantry too. Alright, so this square did a great job. They instantly ran off that cavalry unit. So now my skirmishers are free to just plug away at these units here. And you see I'm bringing cavalry up right behind the skirmish units because if these infantry units want to try and charge my skirmish line, they're not going to be able to because they're going to come into range of the cavalry and have to form square. That's just the way it works. You know, so these skirmishers are safe and sound unless some Prussian cavalry decides to charge them, but we'll deal with that possibility later. Always do a quick supply wagon run when you get the chance. Yeah, these guys are definitely not getting the better of it, but that's the price of having a square in the forward position is over the long term. Certainly they'll take artillery losses, but they do stop cavalry from and this is what I was talking about. Look at these maniac French cavalry just charging across the river. Look at them, they've run all these Prussians off. A bunch of maniacs. Yeah, I certainly didn't want them to do that, but such is the price of look at this. They're going to run this unit off too, and you know they're just chasing these units down. They ran off this whole area. I can't be too bad. Yeah, I didn't want them to do that, but such is the price of having your units under AI control. Is they're just going to do stuff that you certainly never intended them to do. Bunch of maniacs, but I mean they did run off that whole Prussian line, so it's not. Can we really be too mad at them? Boy, did they attack with vigor. And yeah, as you can see, they're all only the division commander is on take charge, but all his subordinate officers, yeah, they're just doing their own thing. His brigade commanders, they were just like, let's get these Prussians. And so yeah, they kind of just ran in there, head full of steam. You can look at this. You can see them just running onto the Sombreff, trying to charge anything in their path. A true bunch of maniacs. But for their own good here, we're going to have to recall them, and before they go and get themselves all killed, yelling "Vive la France" and chasing down all these Prussians. So, and on the one hand, that it did do a good job of really running everything. All the Prussians that were over here are now way back on the Sombreff behind the river Ligny, and we should be able to bring them back. And here they come. Recall, boys. And wow, did we run a lot of them. Look at this. Just running for their lives. Scared to death. So yeah, I've said the AI is perfectly capable of carrying out an attack, and you saw them just carry out a Dickens of an attack right there, running off the entire Prussian force that was on the other side of the Ligny River there. And like I said, they you know, it may not have been what I planned for them, but I can't argue with the results. All right, so we've gotten our over-aggressive cavalry brigade back across behind the gun line here. And the main point of that was to get that gun battery. I'm not so worried about the infantry. We can just bomb them to pieces with this massive gun line we have here. And if anybody gets too close, we'll just send the cavalry out to stop them up in square. What I have to start thinking about now is how we are going to capture the Wagnelée objective, because it has a big 8-gun Prussian battery guarding it, along with a lot of cavalry behind it. So we got to think about how we're going to get those guns, because the moment I charge those guns with cavalry, the Prussian cavalry is going to counterattack and probably run us off, because they actually outnumber us. I can't send the whole cavalry division because I need to keep at least a cavalry brigade to protect the guns. So I can only kind of do things kind of one brigade at a time with the cavalry. I can't just leave the guns unprotected. Alrighty, so the Prussians have brought some cavalry across the river. We have forced these line units into square, as I hoped we would. And before I really commit to trying to capture Wagnelée, I just want to take all the fight out of the Prussians in this area, so that I don't have to pay too close of attention to what's going on over here when I'm capturing Wagnelée. So, you know, it's still early in the battle. We're only about 2.5 or almost 3 hours into the battle. So I just want to kind of suck up whatever attacks the Prussians are planning over here and deal with them. And when they're all spent over here and it's safe and I've got a much stronger line established, we can think about taking Wagnelée. Like I said, we're going to get more reinforcements from the northern end of the map. Duret's division from Derland's Corps is going to come in from over here, and they'll be able to take up position in here and really link our line here with our line here. Jacadot's cavalry division is going to come in from the most northern point on the map, and we'll just send them to capture the Namur Road objective and sit on it. So yeah, here we have the Young Guard. They've taken a couple of artillery losses, but nothing big. We're definitely inflicting way more losses with our artillery than they are with whatever they got back here. But all right, here is the beginnings of the plan here. What I'm going to do is advance one brigade of the Young Guard here, and I'm going to set them up in column by division for now. And once this cavalry attack is done, because I want to get these guns and I want to engage the Prussian cavalry back here and see if I can clear up a little bit more of that area. Then you will start to see how I'm going to plan to capture Wagnelée. Like I said, I don't think it's going to happen in this video. I think that's going to be in part 3 because it's already 17. We only got about 12 minutes left in this video before I cut it, and I'm sure I don't pull it off in 12 minutes. I haven't even begun to set up what I'm planning to do yet. But really right now I'm just kind of letting the Prussians kind of get whatever it is they're trying to do here out of their system, so I can keep an eye on it. These squares are definitely getting pounded on by some of this artillery back at Bry, but they got to stay there because there's a lot of cavalry back here, and we kind of need to oppose that. Here it's the opposite. We have the cavalry, and we're forcing the Prussians into square. Oh, you maniacs. What were you doing? Chasing down every Prussian unit? No wonder you got forced to retreat. Alright, as soon as they're back, we'll recall them. Lunatics. Get back over here. I've recalled the rest of the division. And we'll take our artillery battery. We can always use them, put them further forward, and they're in a good position here to bomb away on everybody up on the Sombre F here. And here's our one lone hero squadron that decided to try and charge the whole Prussian army on their own. Brave lads though they are. So the Imperial Guard is doing fine. They've only lost 30 men out of 5,000, and their artillery is doing most of the work here. And like I said, I didn't really commit the Imperial Guard. I just wanted to. They were just handily placed for me to bring up to contain that Prussian force that was across the river, and now are nowhere to be seen. We've really driven them off. Come on, boys, get back here. Alright, so I've got 2 cavalry divisions now up here. One of them I had meant to send up to the Wagnelée area, but instead they ended up running the Prussians out of this position. So, okay. We've got cavalry approaching. We need to carry out this attack now. Alright, so we got 877 men. So we're going to try and take these guns as well as deal with these 3 Prussian cavalry squadrons here. And yes, forward men, vive la France. So all right, we're taking some casualties from the artillery. Where are our other 3 squadrons that we need to come up here? I really want to advance in force here. Alright, here we go. Alright, so we're going to try and take the guns. That's the main thing. Always want to get the guns. Can always deal with anything else, but the guns are the big damage dealers, so I want to get rid of them. And we're going to charge. We've got 2 squadrons charging this one Prussian squadron. Hopefully we get the best of that. And cavalry fights are always, we got like more and more battalions joining the fight now, so I think we're going to run these Prussians off. And the infantry is backing off. We've got all the guns. Let's see if we can regroup here and hit the rest of these Prussians. Because now they're charging us, but we still got more. Keep going, boys. Don't stop. Hit them. Hit them. And here we have more battalions charging into the fray here. Drive them off, boys. Vive la France. And there they go. Uh-oh. These guys that are charging the infantry are about to get countercharged. Get them out of there. Run, boys. Run. You're going to get countercharged. All right. All right, let's see if we can reform. Here we're going to hit another Prussian squadron here. They're getting hit on either side here. Oh, what a fiasco. Big cavalry battle. All right, and we've driven them off as well. However, we've gotten one lone cavalry squadron isolated here. We need to get them away from the Prussians and pull back our forces here. Run, boys, run. Alright, so we got one Prussian cavalry squadron chasing one of our squadrons down. And we're going to begin the first part of our plan here, which is to deploy the 1st Brigade of the Young Guard into square. Alright, so we've still got a lot of good cavalry over here. Maybe we can charge these guys and get them out of there. Go get them, boys. Here we go. See if we can hit this Prussian cavalry. They should be pretty tired now. Yeah, they don't want any part. Alright, so that was a great attack. We took the guns, we drove off the Prussian cavalry, and we didn't do too bad. We did take a lot of losses. We took 245 losses. So we did lose a lot of men, but it was worth it. We got the guns. That's the most important thing, and we drove off the Prussian cavalry as well as some Prussian infantry. So that's good. So yeah, probably the beginning of the next episode, you will see the plan to take this position unravel. Now that we've cleared all of this out, we need to take this objective right here, and it's pretty well defended. There's an artillery battery right behind it. We got 2 Prussian battalions of infantry. They've got a whole bunch of cavalry behind it, so we're going to have to approach that one carefully. Okay, so we have our 2nd Cavalry Division that we pulled up right here, back here. And these guys we're going to send over to where I originally wanted to send these guys over, but they got carried away in attacking the Prussians. So we're going to take the 9th Cavalry Division here, and we're going to send them over to support the far northern part of the line. It'll take them a while to get there, but like I said, we have plenty of time. So the first thing I want to do is get them moving, and this time I will take charge of the leaders so they don't go running off and trying to go crazy. So So, okay, we have the 1st Brigade of the Young Guard in position in squares. And we're recalling our cavalry after our cavalry attack there to take their guns. So now we have complete artillery dominance. And my plan is germinating to attack this position and be able to capture the objective. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to charge the guns with cavalry while bringing up the squares behind them. So when I get countercharged by the Prussian cavalry after taking the guns, the cavalry can withdraw but can run away behind the squares, and the Prussian cavalry will not be able to follow because the squares are there. And the idea is while the cavalry is charging the guns, I'm going to move the 1st Brigade in square here up into within range of the objective. Because this is not a wussy position back here. That's a lot of cavalry, artillery at close range, more cavalry moving in, infantry here, here, and here. You know, a little thin on the right here, but I'm out of units to try and flank them at this point. We kind of got to hit this position. I can't just keep moving off to the right. I don't have any more units to do it with at this point. So this position looks pretty secure still. Got our skirmishers. We got a whole bunch of cavalry in here to stop any infantry from approaching. The only thing I could really make this position better is if we could get some cannon, some artillery up in here. That would be a big booster to this position. Not too bad, 11 losses. You're going to take losses in square just from artillery. So let's see how we're doing here. 14,000 points. And as I said in the strategy session, if you've done your job right, by the time you take Wagnelée, you know, you should be around 14,000, 15,000 points. And we're close. We're at about 14,000. I think the objective for Wagnelée is worth around 500 points. So that'll bring us to, you know, like 14,500 or something. And you need 19,000 points for a major victory. So the first 20 minutes that we get that Namur Road objective and get 5,000 points, that's going to put us right there. We're going to be around 19,000, 20,000 points right there just from that objective. Which is why I'm surprised that that objective is a hold objective, because the whole rest of the battle after we capture that objective, we're just going to be getting 5,000 points every 20 minutes, and we're going to get just stupid amounts of points. Here these buggers go again. No dummies. This cavalry's crazy. All they want to do is get at the Prussians. They're just dying to get at the Prussians. If you get them anywhere near the Prussians, they're just like, I'm coming to get you guys. All right, so that's 1730, guys. So that's the end of part 2. So we took the Wagnelée we took the Saint-Armand-la Haie objective. We set up our line of containment, going northwest towards Wagnelée. We've outflanked the Wagnelée position, run off some of their guns, run off some of their cavalry, but the objective is still heavily defended. And so in part 3, we will focus on capturing Wagnelée and capturing that objective and how we're going to go about doing that. So that's it for now, guys, and we'll be back in a few days for part 3 of the Eagle Triumphs. Take it easy, guys.